Lord be with you. Good evening. And welcome to this evening worship service. That's the evening prayer during these Lenten Wednesdays. And it's wonderful to have you all. You be seated, okay? Throughout until I say stand up. You be seated. Then we will start the evening prayer.
Before we begin the incense song, it's meant to be sung as a round. So we'll start in the beginning all together, and then where it says part one, this side will be part one with me, and this side will be part two, and Michelle Bush is going to help lead. So she'll sing nice and loud, and you'll follow as best you can. We always get the hang of it by the fifth Wednesday.
May our prayers come before you, O God, as incense, and may your presence surround all, fill us, so that in union with all creation we might sing your praise and your love in our lives. Amen. The light shines in the darkness. Gospel reading lesson. Mark 11, verses 22 to 24. Have faith in God. Jesus said, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, go, move to the sea, and it will be moved. Nothing will be impossible for you. I invite Lloyd Bathen to come and share his faith stories.
My faith walk started a lot different than a lot of people. I was at the Brandon Church. I was pretty young, and I don't know how young I was, but when I went to Sunday school the first time, the Sunday school teacher said I was too young. She led me up the stairs from the basement and told me to sit on the steps on the outside of the church. So I did. My brother was 4 years older. He came and sat with me, and we had a discussion. And my brother Larry says, Dad ain't going to like this. And when my parents picked up, he did not like it. But my grandpa and grandma said, if you're too young to go to the Methodist, I'll take you to Jessup to the Lutheran Church. So for several years, I went to the Lutheran Church, Sunday school and church with the family. But somehow or another, we got back into Brandon, probably my brother wanting to be with the MYF and the people that we was going to school with. There was an older lady that sat in church. Now, you realize when you're young what an older lady could only be maybe 40 years old, but she looked old, and she looked mean, and nobody sat beside her. So I came into church one day a little late, and I had two places to sit. One was the front of the church in front of Pastor Jones, which is not good, and the other one was with her. So I sat there on the edge of the pew and thought, phew, I'm in safe. Somebody came in, and I had to shove in and sit right next to her. And then she looked at me and said, you're the Bathen boy, aren't you? And I goes, yeah. And she had a real sweet voice. Nothing what I expected. And then she says, I've been watching you grow up. You're looking good. I'm glad you're in church. The bad thing was, it taught me a lesson that I judged people without even hearing their conversation. She moved away before I could ever say how sorry I was, because we never sat closer. But she was a retired school teacher, and many times we carried on a conversation before the pastor said church was starting. My youth was developed with a community, and the Noe family was tremendous important to me. They said grace, and they adopted me into their family. I spent a lot of Sundays with them. I went to their weddings and their family gatherings. They said grace in front of their meals, and I learned to say grace as we got married. That's what we did. I graduated at 17 years old, and I couldn't get a job till I was 18, so I made hay, $1 an hour. That's not much faith out there in the sweat. On the 18th birthday, my dad dropped me off at Deere's personnel office. I got hired within 2 hours, and I went to the gear division to run a washing machine. Industrial one, washing steel parts, 40-pound gears. In the application, I weighed 140 pounds, and Dad said, you got to put more weight on, so I put down 160. The supervisor looked at me and says, "You don't look strong enough to lift those 40-pound gears. You know you got to lift 400 gears and 400 housings a day." And I said, "You know, they only weigh 40 pounds. I've been lifting 50 pounds all year." So he hired me. It turned into be a great job. I enjoyed it. I was on days. It was a tremendous job, and I got done pretty early. I was on piecework. I was making $2.43 an hour. That's $1.43 an hour more than baling hay. But there's roadblocks and there's detours. I got bumped to second shift, and there wasn't quite enough work. And while I was running these machines that people let me run, I learned how to run the top machines and the bottom ones. So I've been on a labor grade 4 job. That's the top of the piecework guys in production. They interviewed me, and the supervisor says, "You're a wash machine operator. What makes you think you could run a vertical heel bore with a plus or minus a half a thousandths tolerance?" I looked at him and said I could do it. He said, you got a lot of confidence. I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "The job is yours." It turned in to be the greatest job I had, because while I was in 13, there was a prayer group in the middle of the building in the department. Every noon, at 11 o'clock to 11:30, they prayed and ate their lunch. They invited me there. One day when I was getting ready to eat my lunch, the Lord led me to that prayer group. And in that prayer group, I accepted Jesus into my heart. And I was there quite a while. I enjoyed it immensely. But like all good things, things come about. When I was on my vacation at inventory time, my second shift guy quit. And I had my brother-in-law, John, called me and says, "Lloyd, they put a person on your job with one more day seniority than you have." So I bid on another job while I was on inventory break. The supervisor up there, he was pretty happy on second shift. He said, "You're going to work for me now." Him and I had had a lot of words through the years. He didn't like it because I didn't work overtime. So he said, "You're going to be on second shift and I'm going to be your supervisor." I said, "Well, you're going to be on second shift, but I'm going to days in another department." He said, "You can't do that. Aren't you mad?" But with Christ in your heart, I was not mad. I went downstairs on a job that I'd learned years ago down in the first floor I worked on. And 4 months later, I had an opportunity to go into skilled trades, which I did. Susie and I was married, and when I was dating her, she was in high school, she said, "You ought to save $50 a week." I was living at Homes, so I thought, why not? I got a lot of money. I got $2.43 an hour. So I did that, and we was married. I had a Sunday school teacher at Brandon. Name was Millie, and we weren't the best class. We were really bad. So anyhow, we got married, and Millie was my ex-Sunday school teacher, but I rented a house from her and Don. We lived there a year and a half. In a year and a half, I took that down from $50 a week money, and I bought a farm. We looked at a house in Brandon and a farm. Which way should we go? I went to the farm. Probably wasn't the best move, but I did. No running water, no furnace, no power water system outside, and 2 live skunks in the basement. I opened the door, and by faith, the skunks came out in a few days. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Susie said there was another farm for sale. I was working in getting the field ready, the equipment ready to field. So I said, "Well, yeah, so what?" Went out there, we ate lunch, and I said, "Well, heck, what I'm doing, I could do any day. Let's go look at it." So I looked at it, and Susie knew the house and the buildings were nice. On a Saturday afternoon, I called a banker. I didn't get an answering machine because they didn't have them then, but I had a live banker on the phone. He said, "What can I do you, Lloyd?" I said, "I'd like to buy the farm." He said, "How much do you need?" I said, "I need it all." He said, "How much down do they want?" I said, "They want 20%. And he looked at me, he's talking on the phone, he says, "Well, go ahead and write the check, because they won't cash it anyhow till the abstract's up. Stop in Monday, and we'll work out the details." So he did. He had faith in me. I paid the note off, and we ended up in the LaPorte School District where the kids would start school. The noise, they took our Sunday school kids to Brandon, and then pretty soon we moved them to LaPorte. I went to an adult Sunday school class. I really loved that. Man, that Bible and the verses, but I remembered the ones that we taught in Sunday school. Now they meant something because I had Christ in my heart. And I was pretty comfortable teaching visiting that Sunday school class. Pastor Brewster said, "Lloyd, I want you to teach the senior adults." I said, "I can't teach them." So he says, "Go home and pray about it." Well, I went home after church, but I don't think I prayed about it. So I came back the next Sunday to go to the class, and he met me with a pamphlet in his hand. And he said, "Lloyd, have you prayed about it?" And I can't tell you the answer because I don't remember what I told him. But I remember what he told me. If you don't do it, who will? So I taught him that class about 10 years. It was they were all Christians. The oldest was in his 90s. He was 99 almost. My Sunday school student in that adult Sunday school class happened to be my old Sunday school teacher, Millie. She told me in class one day after class, she said, "Lloyd, you remember at Brandon?" I said, "Oh yeah, how can you forget that?" She said, "You guys were so bad. I went to Pastor Jones. I threw the book down and I says, I'm not teaching that class one more day." Pastor Jones picked it up and looked at Millie and said, "But if you don't, who will?" So I never forgot that. The other day, as we was visiting friends at the nursing home, I visited Larry, and I looked up Millie at the nursing home, and I went over and I talked with her, and she was real happy. When we was done talking about the family and the death of her son, I said, "Millie, can I do a prayer for you?" You can't believe the sparkle in her eyes when I give that prayer. And I don't know exactly what I said, but the Lord had touched me, and that's what I said. The Noes had a tragedy years ago, and I also had to do a hard prayer. And I did it, but before I went, I prayed to the Lord. On that prayer, I talked to this young girl, and I didn't know if I'd been good or bad with the prayer. And years later, they thanked me for that prayer. Last Sunday, we was doing communion. I was standing here in line. There was a little kid standing there on the other side. He was waiting for a blessing. I was sitting there watching him, and I was thinking about how young I was when they said I couldn't be in Sunday school. As Pastor did the blessing on him, you could see the sparkle in his eyes as he went down the aisle from that blessing. It was just very touching. I'm just grateful for what the Lord has done and led us in our lives. We've had not the roadblocks, but the detours. I wouldn't call them T's. I call them you can go left or you can go right. But the Lord has blessed our families. our health. And I just thank you for this time to share with you. Thank you.
Please stand. Great and merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people, the people of the the peace that passes all understanding, and who to live your gospel of mercy and justice through Jesus Christ our Lord. God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let us share the peace of Christ with one another and depart in peace.